They called it insubordination. But I had the email header, the draft status, and the absence of command clearance. One click, and their entire case collapsed. It started on a Tuesday, the kind of gray morning where the coffee's never hot enough, the fluorescent lights hum just a little too loudly, and your badge feels heavier than usual. I was halfway through scanning a training report when the buzz came. Lieutenant Monroe requests your presence, immediately. My fingers froze over the keyboard. The tone in the message was clipped. No emoji, no context. Just like that, my stomach twisted into a knot. You don't get summoned like that unless someone's setting a stage, and I'd seen enough curtains rise on disciplinary dramas to know when the spotlight was about to swing my way. I straightened my uniform, grabbed my notes, and walked the narrow hallway lined with silent wall monitors. Every door I passed felt like it watched me. I could feel eyes behind frosted glass, HR officers, admin techs, silent ranks of officers pretending not to listen. The elevator dinged too loudly. The silence after was worse. The moment I entered, she didn't even look up. Lieutenant Monroe was typing. Her desk was obsessively clean. No photo frames, no post-its. Just a departmental laptop and a stack of closed case folders. The only thing out of place was a single printout sitting slightly askew. That paper changed everything. She finally looked up. "Sergeant Reyes, sit." No greeting, no preamble. I sat. She clicked something on her keyboard and spun the laptop toward me. The screen showed an email header dated 2 weeks ago. Sender, me. Subject, Patrol Reassignment Notice, for review. Status, Draft, DRAFT. "You initiated a rank override," she said. "Unauthorized. That's a violation under Code 4.7. Command clearance is required." My throat dried instantly. That document? It wasn't even sent. I never signed it, never submitted it. I'd prepared it for review because Jenkins, my junior, had been transferred without explanation. And something felt off. I was compiling the record, trying to protect her, not circumvent anything. But that was never— "Don't interrupt." She slid over a printed document. Top corner, reprimand, insubordination. Below, a signature box, empty. I hadn't even seen this before, but the lines were pre-filled. My name, my badge number, the words, "Demotion pending review." My chest tightened. There was no action taken. I saved it as a draft for legal review. Look at the status line. Her voice sharpened. "I'm not interested in excuses. This isn't about your intent. It's about procedure. The system flagged it. HR confirmed the timestamp. You know what this looks like." What it looked like, I thought bitterly, was that someone wanted me quiet. And Jenkins out. I inhaled, slow and deliberate. "Am I being relieved of command?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her drawer and pulled out a rank file document. A paper trail, except something didn't align. The dates on the reassignment order were before the draft was created. That wasn't just sloppy. That was suspicious. My mind snapped into focus. Someone had used my draft to trigger a reprimand after the fact. That meant access logs, email histories, audit trails, and it meant someone was getting nervous. I stood up. "I'd like to request independent review and file a formal objection through HR." That got her attention. Her eyes flicked to the side, and she leaned back slowly. "You're free to do that, but I would advise caution, Sergeant. Insubordination is a serious charge." I didn't flinch. "So is fabricating an order." There it was, her jaw tensed ever so slightly. And in that split second, I knew I wasn't just defending my record. I was stepping into something bigger, something carefully buried, until I accidentally clicked save. They thought I wouldn't notice the missing signature, but I had one thing they didn't plan for: evidence that fought back. The HR office was quiet that morning. Too quiet. No hum of casual conversation. No scent of microwaved oatmeal. Just a sterile kind of stillness that told me someone already knew I was coming. I walked in holding my printed copy of the email marked draft unsigned. The font looked sharper in ink, like it wanted to defend itself. I slid it across the reception desk. The woman at the counter, Marlene, polite but always guarded, scanned it, then glanced up at me. "Are you filing a formal challenge?" I nodded. "On grounds of improper procedure, document misuse, and rank manipulation. I want to trigger a legal review." She blinked, typed something into her keyboard. "One moment." The silence stretched. Behind her, a soft green light blinked above a locked cabinet labeled Reinstatement Notice, Disciplinary Actions. It pulsed like a warning heartbeat. After a minute, she looked up again. "You'll need to speak to internal oversight. They've already logged your name." Of course they had. I followed her down a hallway with walls too white and clocks too precise. Everything in oversight felt like it had never been touched by actual human hands. Just policy, protocol, contractual ghost trails. We stopped outside a door marked Lieutenant Auditor, Compliance Unit. When it opened, the man inside didn't even introduce himself. He gestured toward a chair, then handed me a printed document. I recognized it immediately. It was the same reprimand Lieutenant Monroe had shown me, except now it had a digital timestamp and a highlighted section titled Email Intent Confirmed. I looked at him. What does that mean, intent confirmed? The message was never sent. He tapped his pen. Drafts indicate deliberation. That can be interpreted as pre-action. I swallowed my irritation. With respect, that interpretation requires an actual action. Otherwise, you're criminalizing thought. He didn't flinch. The system flagged the metadata. There was a 6-minute window during which the document was modified and printed. That's what led to the reprimand. Combined with Lieutenant Monroe's statement, it's enough to suggest willful insubordination. Except it wasn't printed by me. I dropped the second page on the desk, the printer log freshly pulled that morning. It listed the device ID, user login, and timestamp. It wasn't my login. He looked at it, looked at me. His face didn't change, but his posture did, slightly more cautious. "Where did you get this?" "IT Archive. I requested the access log for all documents with the keyword reassignment over the past 14 days. That was my ace, and I wasn't done. I also submitted a secondary request to the Systems Integrity Team for document edit history. The modification time they're citing, that was me adding a header to clarify for legal review. But the final version, the one Monroe printed, someone altered it after my last edit, without my login, without my session active. Now, he blinked. And I'm guessing you're not going to find command clearance on file for that rank change either. He stood up, walked to his cabinet, pulled a file, flipped it open. Inside, blank signature lines. I let the silence work. Finally, he said it. "I'll escalate this to Division Command." That was the turning point. The first one. I left with a stamped copy of the objection form and a tightness in my chest that hadn't left me since the meeting with Monroe. Not fear, determination. If they were willing to rewrite procedure to bury someone like Jenkins, they'd be willing to do worse to shut me up. But I wasn't backing down. Not when I had the trail. Not when the rank file was starting to smell like rot. They tried to delete the evidence, but I'd already printed the truth, and now it was filed in triplicate. Sometimes the only way to fight power is with paperwork. If you're still reading, it means the truth matters to you too. Share this story. She found the printer log. They weren't ready for that. My inbox was humming. Notifications blinked like little alarms, each one more sterile and impersonal than the last. HR review update. Case file escalated. System log request approved. I stared at the screen in silence, letting the tension coil a little tighter in my chest. The quiet in the shared workspace was thick, only broken by the soft taps of keyboards and the distant mechanical sigh of the printer warming up behind me. Then came the real email. From Division Command Subject, Rank Action Hold, Urgent Attachment, Reinstatement, Notice PDF. I clicked. It was real, official, time-stamped, filed. The last line froze me. Pending final review, Sergeant Reyes is to be restored to her prior status with full clearance and retroactive command privileges. I was being reinstated, but not because they suddenly believed me, because they were covering something, and I was finally a liability. I printed the document for record, twice, one for me, one for the locker. As the paper slid out of the tray, a memory flashed. Monroe's face when I said the word fabrication, the flicker in her jaw, the pause in her breath. Someone had spliced that draft, used the shell of a document I never signed to spark a disciplinary flame they thought would burn quietly. But they didn't expect I'd fight back with their own files. I grabbed the manila envelope where I was collecting everything. My original email header, the printer access log, the legal review submission stamp, and now this reinstatement notice evidence builds like snow, quiet, cold, and dangerous in layers. But I wasn't the only one watching this storm gather. That afternoon, Jenkins messaged me. Not with words, just a screenshot. Her internal profile updated, rank reinstated, command restored. But more importantly, assigned to a new precinct. I called her. Did they say anything? I asked. Nothing, just a form letter and a courier packet. But I think they knew. Knew what? She hesitated. That I had the recording. My heart skipped. The what? I never sent it. I didn't even know if I should keep it, but I had my body cam running the day they pulled me in. Monroe forgot. HR forgot. But I didn't. I saved the raw file, labeled it lunchwalk.zip, and buried it in my backup drive. I thought maybe I was being paranoid. She wasn't. She had audio, a full recording of the meeting that started this all. Jenkins's voice grew tighter. They said I was erratic, that I made threats, but I didn't. The file proves it, and you were the only one who ever asked what really happened. I couldn't speak. I stared at the rank file again, the one they used against me. Now I realized it wasn't just forged. It was patterned, repurposed from hers, a cut-and-paste job with altered fields, same formatting, same phrases. And suddenly, I understood. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a system, a template they used when someone became inconvenient. Jenkins, me. Who else? I opened the department archive and typed in a few keywords. Rank suspension, draft, unsigned, code 4.7. 4 cases popped up, all women, all under review in the past 2 years, and all now, gone from command. I leaned back in my chair, the fluorescent light above flickering slightly. This wasn't the end. This was the entry point. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm. My uniform hung on the closet door, freshly pressed, badge reattached, but something in me hesitated before putting it on. Reinstatement felt like a technicality, a temporary ceasefire. The war was deeper, older, etched into the system like code buried in a corrupted file. I packed my envelope of documents and walked into the station like I was walking into a courtroom. People noticed, eyes darted away, conversations died mid-sentence. The printer room emptied the second I walked past it. Someone even closed a browser window with HR Policy 12.4 the moment I entered the admin wing. Guilt has a smell, and today, it lingered in the air. I made my way to the archive floor, 2 levels down, near where the department stored old patrol reports, outdated command clearance rosters, and half-forgotten case reviews. It was cold down there, deliberately underlit, a place where things were meant to be found only if you really wanted them, which I did. I logged in to the access terminal and entered my override code, still valid thanks to the reinstatement notice. I searched the internal index, document status, draft, plus rank, plus disciplinary action, 38 results. I narrowed by status, unsigned, now down to 17, then by clearance, no command approval. 4. I opened the first one. Sergeant Lin, 2021 flagged for chain of command violation. Draft email originated from her account, never sent, no clearance signature, yet she was demoted within 48 hours. Next, Corporal Vega, 2022. Same pattern, draft pulled, printed, and used for review. Vega filed a rebuttal, never responded to. Next, Lieutenant Harris, 2020 transferred mid-review, record marked incomplete. Draft exists, unsigned, no clearance, and, just like Jenkins and me, the timestamps don't match edit history. I froze at the fourth file, Detective Selene Marquez. I knew that name. She'd been gone 2 years now. Story was sudden resignation after a procedural dispute. No one ever talked about it, no farewell, no mention. She just disappeared between one Friday and the next. But here it was again. Email marked draft. Printed, unsigned, reprimand issued. No response on file, except for one note in the margin of her personnel file. See Internal Affairs, Case 178A. I clicked. Access denied. I tried my override. Still denied. That's when I heard it. A footstep behind me. Not the usual kind either. Heavy, purposeful. I turned. It was Captain Rhodes. He didn't smile, didn't blink. You're deep in the vault, Sergeant. I stood slowly. Doing a review. Legal authorized it. He nodded. I know. I also know Internal Affairs hasn't updated Case 178A since the day it was opened. You know what that means? I didn't answer. It means it was never supposed to be reviewed. It was just supposed to exist, like a sealed box no one opens. I met his gaze. Then why keep the box at all? He shrugged. Symbolic compliance. Looks good on audits. I paused. Do you know what was in her file? He held the stare a second longer, then spoke low. She was investigating the same thing, patterned reprimands, draft documents pulled from internal servers and weaponized. I told her to be careful. And then? She wasn't. There was a weight to those words that chilled me. Captain Rhodes walked to the terminal, typed a command I couldn't see. My screen flashed red for a second, then cleared. File 178A disappeared. Was that legal? I asked too quietly. Probably not, he said. But if you're smart, you'll print what you need and log off. I didn't move. He added, You're not wrong, Reyes, but you're outnumbered. I looked at him. So were they. He nodded, barely. Then left. I turned back to the screen and hit print. The printouts slid into the tray with a final mechanical cough, still warm when I picked them up. 4 files, 4 careers, 4 ghosts in the system, each reprimand issued from a draft status, each stripped of command clearance, each unsigned, uncounseled, and swept into silence. But now I had them in black and white, hard copies that couldn't be wiped with a back-end script or buried in a system update. I tucked them into a sleeve inside my uniform, zipped it shut, and walked straight to the one person who couldn't pretend not to care. Division Head Calder. She wasn't easy to reach. You didn't just knock on her door, you requested an audience like it was the Senate. But today, she was in. And her assistant looked pale when I showed my rank file and whispered, There's a pattern and a case. 15 minutes later, I stood inside her office. It smelled like leather and politics. Every plaque on the wall glowed with polished history. But the look on her face when she saw the files, It was something colder. I laid them out, one by one, on her table. Every one of these officers was disciplined based on a document that was never officially cleared, I began. Each draft was modified or printed without the author's login. In every case, command clearance was absent. She didn't interrupt. I slid the legal review timeline next, then the email header from my own case, then Jenkins's reinstatement screenshot, and finally, the file list I downloaded from the internal archive. I'm requesting an immediate administrative inquiry into procedural misconduct, I said, and a system-wide audit of disciplinary documentation for the past 5 years. She tapped her pen twice, a precise rhythm, controlled. Then she spoke. Why bring this to me directly? Because I know this doesn't start with you, I replied. But I also know you've seen the fallout. You've signed the exits. You've read the memos. And if this gets out without your hand on it, it's not just about the officers. It's about the entire division. She exhaled. You're telling me I've been signing ghosts. You've been signing the cleanup. Silence again. Long, heavy. Then she pressed a button on her desk. Get compliance in here and bring me the internal printer logs for the past 6 months. The room shifted. People started moving. I wasn't dismissed, so I stood still, heartbeat in my throat. Minutes later, the door opened again. This time, it was internal compliance and a tech analyst in plain clothes. They carried tablets, badges, and expressions that meant business. Calder gestured to my stack. Verify everyone. They sat, scanned, typed. It didn't take long. Confirmed, said the analyst. 3 files edited post-draft by accounts not tied to the authors. 1 printed under a generic terminal login. 2 with missing edit trail metadata. The compliance officer added, this matches a concern flagged in a 2022 security audit. It was dismissed. They called it a training inconsistency. I didn't laugh, but something in me broke a little. Calder sat back, then said the words I wasn't expecting to hear. Reinstate Reyes, launch the inquiry, pull every draft file, and freeze all pending disciplinary actions until further notice. The analyst blinked. That'll get noticed. Calder didn't flinch. That's the point. A whisper of something, respect, passed between us as I nodded. And just like that, the tide turned. But I wasn't done. Not until I saw what they buried in Selena Marquez's file. Not until I knew who was feeding the system the names of women it wanted gone. Because this wasn't just sabotage, it was selection. My reinstatement was official now, not provisional, not pending review. It came with a full system login, badge clearance, and a command inbox that hadn't been touched in 2 weeks. But with it came something else, an email I wasn't supposed to see. It arrived without fanfare, buried between departmental memos and security updates. No subject line, just a blank thread from an anonymized internal relay. The content was simple. She left notes, Locker 48D, back panel, SMSM, Celine Marquez. I read it 3 times before the weight of it hit me. She had left something behind, and someone with access, wanted me to find it. The locker room was empty when I got there. Most of the shift was in field briefings. I moved quickly, my boots echoing in the tiled corridor like warnings. Locker 48D sat low on the 3rd row, half obscured by a busted mop handle someone had propped against it months ago. I hesitated for just a second. Then I unlocked it. At first glance, it was empty. No gear, no folders, no nameplate. But when I reached into the back and pressed gently, I felt it. A loosened panel. I slid it out. Behind it, a small plastic bag, carefully sealed, labeled only with a date. January 18th. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were 2 things, a folded sheet of paper with her handwriting, a burned CD, lunch walk, WAV. I unfolded the paper. It was a list. Handwritten, names, dates, badge numbers, all officers, all women. Each name had a note next to it. Filed, draft, unsigned, no review, demoted quietly. Requested legal counsel, request denied. 26 names at the bottom. They reuse the same structure, the same wording. This isn't disciplinary, it's surgical. She had mapped it out. Each target, each method, each loophole. And the audio, I didn't dare play it there. Not with hallway cameras, not with mics hidden in the vents. I slipped everything into a decoy manila envelope marked Quarterly Excel Review, sealed it, and walked out like I just pulled my annual shift report. Back in my car, parked 2 levels down, I opened my laptop and popped in the CD. It was crackly at first. Wind, footsteps, a soft beep. Then, "You're too ambitious, Marquez." A male voice, calm, almost amused. "You ask too many questions that make people nervous." "I'm just doing my job." Her voice, steady, resigned. "Exactly. That's the problem." Then a long pause, papers shuffling, a chair creaking. "This is off record, right?" Silence. "Right?" Then the audio clicked off. I sat still, my breath fogging the inside of the windshield. This was the moment it happened, the pivot, the pressure before she broke. She didn't resign. She was forced, and they never thought anyone would find proof. I sent a copy of the file to an encrypted drive, labeled it innocuously as printer form diagnostics 2021.zip, and deleted all traces of the extraction. Then I made one more copy, on a flash drive with no wireless access, and locked it in my personal evidence box. If anything happened now, I needed insurance. But more than that, I needed movement. That night, I filed a formal whistleblower disclosure under Policy 9.3. It wasn't flashy. No press, no drama, just a form, a checkbox, an upload. Lunchwalk.wav now had a chain of custody, and tomorrow it would have a case number. The notification came just after sunrise. Policy 9.3 filing acknowledged. Internal Affairs Review initiated. 12 words, that's all it said. But in this world, 12 words could tilt a department. I sat on the edge of my bed, boots unlaced, uniform hanging like a question mark on the door. It had begun. And I wasn't the only one moving. By noon, 2 other officers messaged me quietly, both women. One had been demoted for performance irregularities 6 months ago. The other, suspended for communication breaches. Both remembered submitting draft emails that were never sent. Both said their rank file documents were printed without review, without sign-off, and without a single line of command clearance. I met them in the far corner of the precinct garage, Section D7 behind the old maintenance truck no one touched. We didn't speak at first, we just shared silence, the kind of silence that understood. Officer Maya Singh showed me her document. Her reprimand looked eerily familiar. Same formatting, same phrasing, same paragraph spacing, almost as if it had been built from a template. She pulled out her printed email header, dated 3 days before her file was issued. Status, draft, same as mine, same as Jenkins, same as Celine. They were copying us like we were nothing more than line items in a training manual. Detective Layla Tran pulled out her own folder. Hers included a reinstatement notice from a year ago. Quiet, no announcement, just a silent reversal of a silent demotion. They had quietly corrected her record after pushing her out. No apology, no explanation. "They do it just enough to say they didn't," she whispered. I nodded. "But now we do." That evening, the division server was hit with a security audit directive from City Oversight. I saw it in the admin logs while compiling my weekly status report. The trigger? A whistleblower complaint tied to disciplinary document pattern analysis. That was me. But I wasn't prepared for what came next. I logged into the terminal at 7:42 p.m. The station was mostly empty, just a few night shift officers prepping their beat and a janitor humming low in the hallway. My monitor flickered once, then stabilized. A new folder appeared. Unsent reprimand templates created 28 minutes ago by Monroe. I blinked, clicked fast. Inside, 7 documents, all drafts, all unsigned, each with a badge number, and one of them was mine. But mine had a twist. Unlike the others, mine had a hidden comment, a single line buried in the metadata. If she digs, bury her under procedure, no paper trail. My pulse roared in my ears. That was the plan all along. They didn't just use the system, they engineered it, automated it, templates with pre-filled language, pre-labeled accusations, waiting to be deployed at the first sign of friction. I copied everything to an encrypted drive and logged the time, location, and session ID. Then I sent it to the internal affairs officer now assigned to my case. No commentary, just a subject line. They had a template for me. I didn't sleep that night, but I didn't need to, because now I had more than suspicion, more than logs, more than whispers. Now I had their architecture, and I was going to dismantle it. The day the inquiry launched, half the building pretended it didn't, but the system knew. Emails slowed, printer queues froze. The hallway TVs that usually looped department updates now cycled the same bland graphic. System maintenance, archive optimization in progress. Right, I checked the metadata timestamp on the security freeze, 6:02 a.m. 2 hours after I submitted the folder titled Unsent Reprimand Templates. And that wasn't the only fallout. By mid-morning, I received a summons, not from Internal Affairs or Command, but from a name I hadn't seen before. Zelda Crane? City Oversight Liaison, Risk Integrity Division. We met in a glass-walled room on the 10th floor. She didn't bring a laptop, just a pen, a notepad, and an air of calm that felt rehearsed. "Sergeant Reyes," she said with a small nod. "What you uncovered, this wasn't just protocol abuse. It's algorithmic targeting, patterned document manipulation, policy-based exclusion by automation. That's a systemic failure." Her voice was flat, but her eyes held something hotter. Anger, maybe, or vindication. "I'm not done," I said. "There's still a missing piece." She tilted her head. "Someone built the template. Someone maintained it. Someone programmed the trigger conditions to flag those draft files. I've traced the output, but not the source." Crane didn't blink. "You're looking for the design node." "Exactly." She handed me a USB stick, no label. "Encrypted log files from the back-end compliance mirror. Use at your discretion. But be careful. This goes beyond the precinct. The code was approved 2 years ago under a pilot program, buried in the Policy 9.3 automation rollout." My jaw tightened. It wasn't just the precinct. It was the software that governed all departments. And it was targeting patterns, gender, command challenges, tone markers in emails, and auto-flagging those entries for disciplinary draft generation. Auto-flagging, auto-generating, auto-burying. They had coded suspicion into the system itself. I left the meeting in a daze, took the stairs down, heart pounding with every step. As I reached the garage level, my phone buzzed. One new message, from Jenkins. "I've been followed twice in 2 days. I didn't file a report, yet. But if I disappear, open the folder in the backup archive. Password is the name of her cat." Celine's cat. I knew it. Jenkins had mentioned it once. Miso. I drove straight to the public library, neutral ground, logged into a private terminal, bypassed the obvious networks, and entered the backup archive linked to Jenkins's message. There it was, a folder titled System Seeds. Inside, The original automation proposal, approved by a committee I didn't recognize. The design documentation for the draft reprimand generator, including keyword flagging and default language templates, and a list of training cases. Real officers, real data used to model the system. The first one? Selene Marquez. She had been patient 0. They used her case, her demotion, her silence, as a beta test, and when no one stopped it, they scaled it across departments, across cities. They didn't just bury her. They built a machine out of her story. And now I had its source code. The rain started around midnight. By the time I reached headquarters the next morning, the sky was iron gray and the parking lot shimmered like a cracked mirror. But it wasn't the weather that made the station feel cold. It was the silence, the kind that settles over a place right before it breaks. My ID badge scanned without resistance, but the security officer at the front didn't make eye contact. The elevators hummed like nothing was wrong. But everything was. Because someone knew. Someone had seen the logs Jenkins and I pulled. The System Taos seeds folder, the audit trails, the automation blueprints, everything that proved they hadn't just manipulated procedure, they had engineered it. I stepped into my office to find an envelope on the desk. Unmarked, no post-it, just placed there, deliberate. Inside, a single printout. Subject, user discretionary lock initiated file, system seeds, source node, disabled timestamp, 03:42 a.m. They had shut it down, but not deleted it. That was a tell. Someone high up had seen the code, had understood what it could expose. And instead of scrubbing it, they locked it, like a wolf burying a bloody paw in the snow and praying the melt doesn't come. The final line of the printout chilled me. By order of Interim Deputy Director R.M. R.M. Not in my division, not in my city, someone from Central Command, maybe even further. I stared at the name for a full minute, then did what I wasn't supposed to. I ran a trace. My clearance technically didn't extend to federal systems, but the reinstatement notice from 2 chapters ago. It came with temporary override privileges, ones no one had remembered to revoke. I tunneled through, found her, Rachel Mendel, former policy analyst turned digital compliance officer, promoted in the quiet chaos of the first Policy 9.3 wave, architect of proactive integrity frameworks, buried deep in layers of clean language and harmless-sounding process updates. She was the keystone, the person who took the Selene template and turned it into a civilian-facing zero-audit disciplinary engine. And she'd done it under the banner of efficiency. I was about to pull her author logs when my screen flickered, then went black. System interruption. Session expired. And then, seconds later, my desk phone rang. Only one person had that line. Zelda Crane. Her voice was low. "You've been flagged." "For what?" "Doesn't matter. They're coming to reclaim the files. You have minutes. Move." I didn't ask how she knew. I moved, grabbed the USB, slipped it into the lining of my boot, pulled a decoy drive from my desk drawer, the one with old Excel shift schedules and expired password logs, and laid it neatly by the monitor. Then I logged out. Downstairs, 2 plainclothes officers entered just as I exited the elevator. They didn't look at me, just walked past, into my office. Let them. I was already walking toward the records annex, toward the one place I knew still had an offline terminal, untouched by automation, unreachable by network kill switches. Because some things, once exposed, have to live on paper. By noon, I had printed 23 pages, system logic trees, autoflag keywords, evidence of code bias, the chain of custody on Jenkins's audio, the origin node of lunchwalk.wav. At the bottom of the final page, I wrote one sentence in pen. Selene wasn't a mistake. She was the model. I sealed it, addressed it to Zelda Crane, City Oversight Risk Division. Then took one more envelope. This one had no address, just a name. Rachel Mendel. And inside, only 3 words. I'm not done. The hearing was set for 9 now a.m. sharp. Not a courtroom, not even a tribunal. Just a repurposed training room on the top floor of City Oversight. A long glass table, 6 chairs, and 2 security cameras silently blinking in the corners like bored witnesses. I walked in with a folder labeled Policy 9.3 Violations, Confirmed Cases. Inside, 26 names. 4 confirmed reinstatements, 3 under review, 19 still marked as administratively closed. They had faces now, not just metadata. Zelda Crane was already seated when I arrived, typing something without looking up, but the moment I slid the folder onto the table, she stopped. You realize once this enters record, there's no containing it. I met her eyes. That's the point. The room filled quickly after that. Internal Affairs, Compliance Audit, 2 lawyers from Central Command, and 1 observer from the Civil Liberties Board. No Monroe, no Mendel. But they were watching. They always watched. Zelda stood. This meeting will examine allegations of systemic misuse of procedural drafts to falsely initiate disciplinary action, as triggered under Policy 9.3. The evidence submitted alleges the use of templated reprimands, lacking proper clearance, generated from unsent documentation, and patterned against female officers disproportionately. The room held its breath. I stepped forward. I'm Sergeant Reyes. The original claim was mine, but the evidence doesn't begin with me. It begins with Detective Celine Marquez and ends with a machine. I pulled the first page from the file. Here is her reprimand, generated from a draft email she never sent. No command clearance, no legal review, just a system flag, followed by her sudden exit. Next page. This is mine, same format, same language, same falsified timestamp. Mine was caught because I didn't go quietly. I handed the next pages to the audit officer. Here are the logs, 7 different reprimand templates, stored in a shared internal folder, last accessed by Lieutenant Monroe hours before my suspension. All auto-generated, all unsigned, all pre-populated. I paused, then placed the flash drive on the table. This contains the automation code. Zelda nodded for the tech rep to receive it. Then I said the one thing that cracked the silence. They weren't reviewing performance. They were performing removals. The Civil Liberties rep raised a brow. Intentional removals? Patterned removals, I corrected. Trigger-based, gender-skewed, efficiency cloaked in protocol. The second lawyer leaned forward. And who designed the system? I didn't flinch. Rachel Mendel, City Compliance, promoted shortly after the system's first test case, Marquez. She authored the document that defined probability-based risk mitigation, which allowed suspicion to be modeled as action. The room shifted. That was the moment they realized this wasn't about one station. It was about liability, legacy, policy. Is there audio? Asked the audit officer. Yes, I said. Body cam file, lunch walk. WAV. It was dismissed as irrelevant, but it contains direct evidence of pressure, manipulation, and off-record threats. I passed it forward. One more envelope, and then I said nothing. I didn't need to. The evidence was in their hands now. Zelda stood again. City Oversight confirms preliminary validation of this evidence. An emergency freeze on all pending 9.3 disciplinary cases will be issued within the hour. Independent review panels will be assigned to all template-linked actions. An internal inquiry into procedural automation will begin immediately. I exhaled, slow. Then I asked, And Monroe? A beat. Then, removed from command pending investigation. What about Mendel? Zelda didn't answer, but her silence was enough. That night, I returned to the station, cleared my desk, wiped the coffee stain from my monitor, said nothing as people avoided my gaze. As I passed the old bulletin board near the lockers, I stopped. Someone had posted something new. Just a photo. Celine Marquez, in uniform, smiling, pinned beside a sheet of paper. On it, "Honor isn't always loud, but silence, that's where the damage hides." I turned, walked out, not a hero, not a savior, just someone who refused to accept that procedure should ever mean erasure.